Well, hello everyone. We're open tonight for fun and so glad to see you here. This is Talk More Talk, a solo video cast talking about the Beatles stuff when they were apart, but we don't just talk about them when they split up. We also, once in a while, occasionally delve into the Beatles as a group. Special time, special releases like we all know Let It Be is going to be coming. So I'm pretty sure it's a safe bet we're going to be discussing that when the time comes. I'm Joe Mayo, and my channel on YouTube is Mean Mr. Mayo, where I talk about Beatles, solo Beatles. I do record hunts and finds and show rare memorabilia. Do a lot of comedy. Do some Yoko songs occasionally. Do a lot of crazy things and have some fun too, in addition to all of the serious stuff. Well, tonight we're going to have an interesting topic. But before we get to that, let me introduce my co-hosts. To start with, she's the queen of all things, of all things Beatles related, probably other stuff too. Uh, and she just got over a very harrowing root canal, and she managed to survive. I'm happy
Mhm.
to say. She's the author of a couple of books. This one here, "Songs We Were Singing," guided tours through the Beatles' lesser known tracks. And I don't know how many of you were lucky enough out there, but I've got an autograph too down there, which is sure to become a collector's item and worth a lot of money in the future. Okay. She also has a book, Michael Jackson FAQ. Please welcome Kit O'Toole.
Hello, Joe, and I'm going to wait and see if you put that up on eBay on that.
I'm going to use another name if I do.
Uh-huh.
No, wouldn't
Oh
think of it.
man.
I'm taking
Yep.
this to the grave. That's
There
it.
you go. Good answer.
Okay.
Good answer. Hi, Tom.
Uh,
Hi, Ken, and hi, everybody.
Hey,
Hey,
how
kid.
you doing?
and we have someone here who's got a beard going here, and I guess you could say that's kind of full looking. He has a podcast of his own, and he shares it with Andy Nichols, the two hosts of this. It's a video cast, and it's actually about Paul McCartney called Two Legs. Welcome to Tom, Chris Kringle, Hanyadi.
Thank you, Joe, for that wonderful introduction. Kit, Ken, I hope you guys are doing well, and
Hey,
hello,
Tom.
everybody out there.
Yep.
And last but not least, we have, as you know, the long time, and I don't mean to make him say that he's the oldest here, but he is. He's the eldest statesman here of the group, and he has a syndicated radio program, Every Little Thing. I'm sure many of you already know him from there, and he also hosts the podcast Things We Said Today with his co-hosts Alan Kozin and Darren DeVivo. It's Ken Michaels. Hi, Ken.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Kit. Hey, Tom. Good to be with you. Hey, everybody
Hello.
watching. Yeah.
Yeah, and our topic is going to be, in case you didn't know already, it's going to be on the albums of the Beatles. There's so many songs that we think would have made really great singles, and not just because we necessarily like them personally favorites, but would make just in general really good singles. And we're going to be getting into that, and we're going to find out, what each of us thinks are some real good contenders for that, and what some of you think. Hopefully, you'll be giving your ideas too. But before we do, I think we got a nice packed amount of news today from Ken. So, Ken, why don't you start us off?
That's usually what happens when you do a show once every 2 weeks. A lot accumulates. So, anyway, the first few news items are on two of the Beatles' sons. And the first one is a serious subject regarding the health of Julian Lennon. He posted online that a few days ago he went to visit his dermatologist in LA, where she noticed that there was a little bump on his head that actually was a mole. And it had been there along with the birthmark for the last 57 years. She urged him to have a biopsy, only to learn 24 hours later that it was malignant and cancerous. And she urged him to have it removed immediately. She says, Julian says, hopefully we managed to remove all that was cancerous, but the mole is being sent off for further, deeper analysis, and he will have the results of that test next week. This health scare has prompted Julian to urge everyone to have health checkups as often as possible. Let's hope and pray that the results from these further tests are that Julian is okay.
Indeed.
So I don't know if you guys had heard about that, but
Yep.
Yeah,
Keep moving in your prayers about this.
absolutely. But at least they've made a lot of strides in skin cancer, and so I'm cautiously optimistic, but I
Hmm.
wish them all the best.
Right.
Right.
It's a good thing that he went to the dermatologist in the
Yeah,
first place.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. News from 2 weeks ago about George Harrison's son, Danny, and the Harrison estate bringing back the Dark Horse label by partnering in a new multifaceted global deal with BMG. This agreement will include releases from the acclaimed catalog of George Harrison's legendary Dark Horse label, and also his Indian label imprint, Harrisongs, as well as Joe Strummer's solo catalog, including his works alongside the Mescaleros. Dark Horse Records will also release new recordings through BMG, including the current Tom Petty Estate charity single, For Real, for Tom, which we discussed in the last show, that features Jacob Dylan, Danny Harrison, Amos Lee, Lucas Nelson, Micah Nelson, and Willie Nelson. Willie with
Hmm.
his two sons there. The first releases came out on Friday, January 24th, on all digital platforms, including the George Harrison produced Ravi Shankar Chants of India. Also, Ravi Shankar and Ali Akbar Khan in concert, 1972. Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros' albums Rock Art and the X-Ray Style, Global A Go-Go and Streetcore, and also the band Attitudes. And the album called Ain't Love Enough, the best of the Attitudes. Upcoming releases in 2020 include compilations, live albums, and box sets featuring rare and unreleased recordings from the Dark Horse label, many of which will be made available digitally for the first time ever. So there's two issues concerning this, as far as I'm concerned. First of all, is this strictly digital? These
Sounds like it.
releases, which I think it is. I don't think we're going to see
Mhm.
any physical releases at all. And does it include George Harrison's own solo music? Now, I'm not 100% certain. I'm trying to find out more about it, but I'm pretty sure that it's all handled by Universal. I don't think that George's stuff on the Dark Horse label enters into this. I could be wrong, but I hope to find out more about this,
Would that
certainly
mean
by
like
the next show.
would Universal then own unreleased stuff as well? I mean, would they be able to kind of like slip in something that Universal doesn't necessarily own, like unreleased George Harrison material?
That I don't know. It's just I personally think that Universal covers everything from George
Hmm. Okay.
now.
Right.
Um, so we'll have to wait and see. Last year, a highlight for many of us was seeing Danny Harrison open for Jeff Lynne's ELO while touring the US. It's just been announced that Danny will be joining Jeff again on the road for Jeff's From Out of Nowhere tour, which so far will be a UK, Euro, Ireland tour with 15 dates beginning September 19th through October 21st. Will there be a return to the US this year? And with Danny, we'll have to wait and find out. Okay, while the world is in complete shock and extremely saddened by the death of NBA legend Kobe Bryant, as well as his daughter Gianna, who along with 7 other people died in a helicopter crash on last weekend, Paul McCartney released this statement on the tragedy. So sad to hear about Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and their friends. He was a great player and a very impressive human being, sending many blessings and much love to all his family at this most difficult time. Love, Paul. Very nice words there from Paul McCartney on that horrible, horrible tragedy. And well, speaking of sports, not much to say about it, but Paul and Nancy were at the Super Bowl yesterday.
Yep.
And I saw Paul just jiggling around, rooting for, I don't know what team. I don't know who he was rooting for, but he looked like he was having fun.
He sure did.
We all know Paul attends a lot of sporting events anyway. He's been to Yankee
Yep.
games. He's been
Yes.
to, I think, Lakers games too.
Red Wing games.
Really?
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
Notice the Detroit Red Wing logo on one of his acoustic guitars.
oh, okay. Very good for pointing that out.
Yeah.
I'll have to make that part of a trivia question sometime
Mhm.
on my website.
There you go.
Also, Variety is reporting that a screening of a few minutes of the upcoming documentary on the Beatles' Get Back, Let It Be sessions, directed by Peter Jackson, took place at Universal Music's annual showcase that coincided with the Grammy Awards. Jeff Jones of Apple Records said, because of the perception that the 1970 movie was a depressing look at the Beatles coming apart, Jackson was brought in to digitally clean up old footage, removing what reporter Jem Aswad described as the murky, shadowy atmosphere of the original. Jones said, "We have created a brand new film that will attempt to bust the myth that the Let It Be sessions were the final nail in the Beatles' coffin." According to Aswad, Jackson succeeded based on what was shown. He is quoted as saying, "An amazing counter-narrative to the Let It Be film has ensued. It's brighter both visually and spiritually, with many, many shots of the Beatles joking around, making fun of each other, singing in silly accents, and generally indulging in vintage mop-top hijinks. It also features many scenes of the group rehearsing songs from the Abbey Road album, their true swan song, which would be recorded over the following summer, and even rough versions of songs that would appear on solo records. On the basis of this clip, Beatle fans will lose their minds over this film." We're all waiting to see this.
Yeah, sounds
So,
promising. I cannot wait.
yeah,
You know,
well,
I was listening to the Black Album bootleg, which is recordings from that month in
uh-huh.
'69, and they do a hilarious. It's not a full length version, but it's maybe a minute long, and it's their version of the House of the Rising Sun,
Sure.
and and it's just hysterical, and it just sounds like they really are having a lot of fun, doing that.
Mhm.
Whether or not they're making fun of that song or not, I don't know, but it's just it's still, you can tell they're having fun, a good time.
It's the Beatles as they were. It was
Yep.
very loose, some of those
Yeah.
sessions, and a lot to explore there. I know there are certain fans who have listened to all the bootlegs from Let It Be, and there's quite a lot of material there.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's a
Sure
lot.
is.
Yeah.
A few more news items left. A new documentary, John Lennon, The Final Year, will be coming out this year to time with the 40th anniversary of his death. It will include never-before-seen interviews with people who spent time with John during the last years of his life. The film's producer is the ever-tireless Ken Womack.
Here we go.
I don't know. He never leaves his computer, like I said, but
Yeah,
he's
and
working on this film too.
yeah, safe to say he'll be on a future episode here talking about it. So when it
Okay.
comes out,
Ken also has a book to coincide with this coming out around John's birthday called John Lennon 1980, The Final Days in the Life of Beatle John. All right, so more stuff to look forward to there. Plus, finally, here, a reminder that on February 11th, we'll see the 50th anniversary release on Blu-ray and HD digital of Harry Nilsson's animated TV special, The Point, with lots of bonus material. Now, I mentioned this before, but what I failed to mention was that Ringo does the narration for it.
Yep.
That's
When this, when the TV special aired first, Dustin Hoffman was the narrator.
Yes.
And for all future releases for home video, Ringo was the narrator. And so this is the brand new version. The last one that came out a few years ago had a lot of bonus material. This one has even more.
It's loaded. I was just looking at them before we started, and it's jam-packed.
Mm-hmm. I just did an interview, by the way, with Keith O'Nilsson, who's one of Harry's 7 kids, and he's involved with some of the bonus material on The Point, and he also plays bass on the new Harry Nilsson album called Lost and Found, which is made up mainly of Harry's last songs. So, yeah, a lot to look forward to on this new 50th anniversary Blu-ray of The Point.
Yep.
And that's it.
Well, we're also getting Ringo the Fourth this month as well, the reissue from Friday Music.
All right.
I have my order in.
Okay,
here, everybody. So, okay, well, thanks, Ken. And we're going to get on to our main topic, which, as I said before, is going to be what we think might have been really good choices for singles that the Beatles could have had out in the 1970s and 1980s only. And I thought I could hand it over to Ken, and maybe you could explain a little more of the criteria of what we're going to be doing here.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm sure that for some of you who followed all the solo music, there have been times when you've heard songs from the albums that you thought were dynamite cuts that might have been big hits. And for some reason or another, they weren't released as singles. That's what this is all about. But first of all, we should stress that you have to kind of detach yourself from being the fan that you are, if it's possible,
Right.
and think about what would have worked on the radio, what commercially would have worked, what really would have been big hits. Not necessarily songs that are favorites of yours. In fact, it could even be a song that you hate, but it might have made a good choice as a single. Like, for example, a song that I devour, Little Lamb Dragonfly, which I think is one of Paul's best post-Beatles songs, certainly in the 70s. I could never see that as a single. You know, it's a great song to me. I would never see that as a single. So these have to be songs that we all feel would have been big hits had they come out. Also, we're
Well,
stressing
one
that
second, Ken. 1 second. I mean, define big hit. Are we talking top 40?
bigger, if possible,
Okay,
top
top
10,
top 20.
number
Okay.
one, you know, songs
Top
that you
40.
felt,
This is the solo Beatles. We're talking about the Beatles. Solo Beatles here. Top 40. Huh. Oh. Poo, poo, poo.
yeah, well, the Beatles had singles in their solo careers that hit number one, top 10,
Yeah.
top 20, top 40,
That's
songs that
right.
you feel had potential as singles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, we're stressing that it has to be in the US. The reason being because there were singles released in other countries, and it gets confusing to know what was released in Europe as opposed to over here. It also gets
Yeah.
confusing, you know, for me sometimes. I'm so used to seeing some of the solo videos that were made. For
Right.
some of them, like You Don't Owe Me at All,
Mm.
one of Ringo's songs, that was a video that was made, and it was a single in the UK, but it never was a single here. But you
Right.
think, well, there was a video made, it must be a single. So we're really talking about the US. We have to simplify it and just talk about in America.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so we're just limiting it to just that. Also, let me bring up the song Maybe I'm Amazed, which I thought we have to bring up in this case because the first McCartney album didn't have any singles released from it. And I think just about everybody on the planet agrees that Maybe I'm Amazed is one of the greatest songs of his career, but it never was released as a single, the studio version. But you really can't pick that one because the live version from Wings Over America was a hit.
But
So
not in 1970.
no,
1970, there was no 1976 yet, though.
yeah, there's 1976 and Wings Over America, and then that became a top 10 hit. So
Yeah.
it really was a hit, just the studio version wasn't. So if you want to mention Maybe I'm Amazed, that's fine. But we're all going to pick two songs each from each Beatle.
Right.
And with Paul, you could say Maybe I'm Amazed, but you have to pick two others. Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Also, one more thing. The reason
Okay.
why we're stressing the 70s and 80s
Oh, yeah.
is because of the way that radio is structured. Terrestrial radio operates like a business, and every single format of radio has a certain demographic audience. And hit records are played on what we used to call top 40 radio, which were later called contemporary hit radio stations, CHR radio, and they have a target demo, usually from 12 to it's 34 or 44 years old. Once an artist gets older, the people who program those stations in that format feel that that audience doesn't care about that artist anymore. So they're gradually phased out of the programming of that format. And that happened a lot in the solo Beatles from the 90s on up. Really, when you look at the hits of the solo Beatles, their prime time was the 70s and the 80s. And thank God George Harrison had a number one hit with Got My Mind Set on You, which hit number one in January of 88. That's like that and My Brave Face hitting the top 40. You know, that was kind of the end of having major hits for the solo Beatles. And it has nothing to do really with the quality of the music because they released great stuff from the 90s on up that maybe some of us felt should have been big hits. I always bring up The World Tonight. The World Tonight is a
Oh, I
tremendous
love that. Oh, great single.
if that song had been released as a single in the 70s, especially at the height of Wings fame, even in the 80s, it would have done much better. But the people who program that format of radio just stopped playing Paul for the most part. He did get airplay on MTV and VH1. I'll give him
Yes.
credit there.
I do
But
remember that.
as far as terrestrial radio, the airplay just gradually became eliminated. And that's how it is with just about every single artist. It's not just the solo Beatles.
Yeah.
It's Elton John, it's Eric Clapton, it's Rod Stewart. If
Yeah.
they're lucky, they make the adjustment and then they can be heard on, say, adult contemporary radio. But as far as the stations that control the hits in the Hot 100 on Billboard, gradually, it all ended after the 80s for the most
Yeah.
part. It's
Sure.
sad to say, but like I said, it's got nothing to do with the quality of the songs.
So many
Because-
songs had they been released in the 80s or 70s. I
Right.
think of Ringo's single "Weight of the World," which I think was a
Exactly.
natural hit, a natural born
Yes.
hit. Did nothing really.
Yep.
Hope of Deliverance might have been a big hit
It's
in
another one.
the 70s and 80s. A Fine Line. Those
Mhm.
songs. I think Come On to Me would have been a big hit
Yeah,
in the 70s and the 80s.
I love that.
But those stations now are not going to play an aging artist. They're not going to play a 77-year-old Paul McCartney on their radio station. So that's
Yeah.
just the way that it is. So for the time being, when it mattered, when the singles
Yeah.
mattered, and
We're
there was
sticking
a
with that.
chance
Yeah.
that these songs would have been hits, I thought we should just focus on the 70s and 80s.
All righty then. I think that's a good idea. And why don't we get rolling? And we're going to take two from each Beatle, right? You said
Right.
we're going to do. Let's
Uh-huh.
start with Kit. Kit, what's your
Oh,
choices?
well,
for-
who do you want to? Are we going to do all four at the same time, or are we going to do one each?
That's
Uh,
up to me.
Why don't we do one each?
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
one each.
Okay,
Hmm.
so let's see. So okay, I'll just start with George. And and it's interesting as I went through these picks. By the way, that there were some songs, and I'm focusing on one right now from Matt Smith. Give Me Some Truth. That was one that I voted for as well. That I just thought, really, that wasn't a single. It feels like it should have been. So there were some cases with other songs I couldn't believe, and one of them from George was Wah Wah. I can't believe that wasn't a single. When when he played it live in concert, it killed. And it was a different sound, obviously, from the some of the other All Things Must Pass stuff. It was more of a rocker, and but it had some soul to it with the horns, and just had this really big sound. And I think that could have done very well. And as I said, judging from crowd reaction to it, I almost was shocked when I double checked. I thought, oh, this must have been a single. I must be misremembering it. No, it wasn't. So so Wah Wah was a big one for me. So now, are we going around? We're doing one for each
Well,
Beatle
I
right
just want
now?
to say,
Yeah.
if we can interject our opinions. I mean, I
Oh,
love
sure,
Wah
of
Wah.
course.
I love that track.
Mhm.
However, personally, I don't see it as a single. I don't know if
Mhm.
anybody
Mhm.
else would. It just to me, it seems long. Well, and again, Hey Jude was kind of was long. So
Yeah.
was like a Rolling Stone. So
Exactly.
I don't know. And Matthew Smith, who had said, "Give me some truth." Great idea. But I'm just wondering too, with the tricky dicky stuff in there, if that would have worked. See, I don't know how
Mhm.
intense we want to get with what we think really had a good chance of being a hit, or if there was a stipulation, something in there maybe that would have been blocked or banned or something. But
Mhm.
that's just an opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
we're
love
gonna
the
go around
song.
now.
No, I thought you were going to pick two from
Yeah.
each Beatle. So
Okay,
you
so
only
I'll stick
mentioned
with
Wah Wah.
Okay, so second one, boy, this was really a tough call, but I think probably I'd say Here Comes the Moon. I'm amazed that wasn't a single.
Hmm.
Same thing. It's very and yes, Matt, thank you, Matt. That's he agrees with me as well. That I think it fit in with the kind of the mellow sound of the time, which was what was it, like 70, 76, or yeah, 76, 79, excuse me. I mean, it would fit in with that soft rock kind of sound. It would have done very well on adult contemporary at the very least. It had just beautiful melody, and one of the criteria I picked as well, that helped me choose my songs was, is it memorable? Is it an earworm that sticks in the mind long after you've heard it? that is something that's also important in a single to me anyway, is something that breaks through the noise of
Right.
radio. And Here Comes the Moon it does that for me. Yes, it's not it's not wah wah, but it really, it's become a beloved song in
Hmm.
George's catalog, and I just mystified that it wasn't released
Yeah.
as a single.
Yeah, when you're someone like me, when I'm first getting into George Harrison right at the Cloud Nine time, and Best of Dark Horse comes out, and it's on that Best of Dark Horse, so you automatically assume that it was a single here, in the States, but yeah, like you said,
Exactly.
it never was.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
Okay,
I kind of disagree with both choices, but I love both songs.
That's okay.
You want our opinions here? I think.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wawa is a great song, and also, don't forget that was the first song George did at the concert for Bangladesh, so everybody was cheering him on there.
Yeah.
But and it got a lot of airplay on rock radio. I look at it as an album track, a really strong album track that helped to carry the weight of that album. And Here Comes the Moon is a beautiful song too. I just don't see it as hit potential. Not along the same lines as say Blow Away was,
But yeah, I mean, many of the songs that I pick, by the way, like I don't see a lot of these as like #1 hits. I mean, there's that's thing. These aren't going to be massive hits, but I could see it doing well on certain charts, as I said, adult contemporary, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we ready to move on a little? We go to so Tom's now going to give his two right from. We're going to do each Beatle. George, for you, Tom.
Yeah. I just find it amazing that with a triple album, mainly a double album, but only 2 singles were released from that album, and I find that there's so many. Well, I think there's at least 3 or 4 other songs in there that I think personally had hit potential, and one of those being the title track, All Things Must Pass. I see that, maybe edited down, maybe, 30 seconds to maybe 40 seconds, maybe shorten it down a little bit. I see that being a potential hit right after, What Is Life? You had, a slower kind of rocker with All Things Must Pass, and then a real true rocker with, What Is Life, and then maybe, bring it down a little bit again with All Things Must Pass. I just think it's lyrically, I think it's something that people, everybody can connect to, and musically, I think I think it fits for that time period as well. I know we don't, always want to use the word dated or anything like that, and I don't think that song is dated, but I think it is of that time, especially during that singer-songwriter time where a lot of those people were having hits. So that's my first choice.
And it is the title track too of the album. I mean, and I could see that as a single personally.
And my second track was a song that was going to be a single, and for some reason it got pulled at the last minute, and that's "Don't Let Me Wait Too Long." A very, very, very catchy song. Acoustically, I love the production of that song, and George is in really fine voice. I know it's a lot of repetitive lyrics, but I mean, there's a lot of songs out there that have constantly, a lot of repetitive lyrics in it, and were big hits. But I think it was a really strong song, and I also want to say that a lot of these albums in the early '70s, they only had one single from them, and it's a shame, or no singles for that matter.
That's right.
That shocked me.
And it really was a shame, and and I utilized a few of those albums actually, because there's, I think, some great hit potentials on these albums, and like I said, I mean, unfortunately, it was just not to be only one single per album at the time for a lot of these albums, and that was a shame.
Yeah, that's the thing about that time period. Most albums had 1 or 2 singles from most artists. It wasn't until, like, certainly in the case of the solo Beatles, 1973, you had Ben on the Run with 3 singles and Ringo with 3 singles. But prior to that, it was very uncommon for that to happen.
Yeah.
All right. So Ken, how about you? George?
Well, I concur with Tom. Don't Let Me Wait Too Long. gets the #1 choice for me. I do think that should have been a single, and I do believe it was going to be, and it was
Yeah.
pulled
Mhm.
for I don't know what reason. And
Right.
it's kind of sad because here is George with a #1 single, "Give Me Love."
Exactly. And
You gotta
album.
follow it. Yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
follow it with something else, to go with the momentum of a #1 single, and they didn't release a second single. And I
Right.
think of all the songs on Living in the Material World, that one had the most commercial potential. So I would
Yeah.
definitely put that one in there. This is another case of a song that had a video, but it wasn't released as a single in the US, and that was True Love.
Mm.
True Love, I think, is really catchy. It's under 3 minutes, great
Right.
melody, great cover of the Porter song, great slide guitar work in there. I just hear top 40 all over it. I don't see how that song
Mhm.
could miss at least hitting the top 40 for George Harrison. You know,
Mm.
for
Right.
all the Beatles here, by the way, I have honorable mentions too
Yeah.
because
Oh, I've got some
it's
too.
so
Just
tough. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
reading a lot of things.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
in case we've got the same picks, I've got honorable mentions down
Me
too.
too.
So
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to say that as I picked my two, the first one that I picked right off the bat was "Don't Let Me Wait Too Long."
All right.
It was my first pick. I mean, I think that was every time I hear that, I say it's such an obvious single. I
yeah.
wonder why that wasn't single. I had another one from the self-titled George Harrison album called "If You Believe."
Yep.
I thought that's very commercial sounding, very poppy. I thought that has hit potential to it.
Yep.
I picked that. I'll throw in "Beautiful Girl" of 33
Mm.
and a third. I
Mhm.
thought maybe
Yep.
had some potential as a single,
Yeah.
and that's what do you think?
Yeah. If You Believe is one of my honorable mentions. Michael Rice,
Yeah,
by the way, we see his comment. He says,
Arrow
Paul
through me
Arrow
was
Through
a
Me.
single.
That
Yeah.
was a single.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
'Cause
Yeah.
I was
Great.
originally going to say "Teardrops." Then I was informed that was before the show
Yeah.
that already was a follow-up, a single, right? To all those
It's so
after all
old.
those years,
Yeah.
all
Right.
those years
Mhm.
ago.
Right.
Um, all right, well, so let's move on now, and I guess we'll go around again. Let's save Paul for last because he's got so many. Why don't we go to John and see what we can find from John Lennon, Kit?
Well, this was a tough call, and again, another question of I was surprised these weren't released as singles. This one I knew that wasn't, but and somebody else, and I apologize. Someone else mentioned this already as well. I'm losing you.
Mhm.
I
Mm.
was kind of surprised that wasn't released as a single, and I'm talking. I love the Cheap Trick version. I would have loved to have seen that released too. Maybe the B side. I don't know, in my fantasy world, but but we'll go with the album version.
With
Um,
or without the Yoko part at the segue?
oh,
That's
that's
moving
true.
on.
That's
That's
true.
Mm.
I wonder. It could exist without it. They released it that way on I think was it on the John Lennon? Maybe not. John Lennon collection from '82. I don't think that one was on there. Maybe
I don't think
Yeah.
they took out
no,
Yoko.
no.
Yeah,
But they
I
No.
didn't
don't
put that. They
remember.
didn't put that track on that one.
Mhm.
Maybe it was
Yeah.
on the the Lennon box set. Where they had a final CD that had all of John's tracks from Double
Right.
Fantasy and Milk and Honey on it. They might have put it on there by
Mm.
Yeah.
itself.
Yep. Yeah, I just think it's again it would have been I think a nice contrast because the other singles that and they were all stellar of course that came from Double Fantasy, Woman, Beautiful Boy just like starting over,
Yeah.
I think all wonderful. But
Mm.
I think it would have been a nice balance. I mean, that's another criteria I used for singles is, I like seeing different sides of an artist, and a lot
Mm.
of artists will put out a ballad, then a rocker, and then
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
so I thought for this um, that I think I'm losing you would have been great because that was the other thing that some people complained about at the time of Double Fantasy. Oh, it was too soft, and so
Right.
this would have kind of answered those critics, and would have been a good single. Boy, I'm really torn about this one. There are a lot here, but I was shocked the Jealous Guy
Yeah.
was not a
Uh-huh.
single. Really?
Yeah, there
I
you
mean,
go.
I couldn't believe. I mean, that is such a classic.
Yeah.
that
It's
Right.
become one
and
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and I found out. I guess there was a single released of it in like in the UK in the mid '80s, something like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
but
Well,
Damn.
No, I think in
probably.
the US in 1985,
Mhm.
yeah,
they
right.
released it as a
But
single.
long after the fact, I just was stunned because that is, I think, one of John's finest,
Hmm.
finest
Right.
works, and lyrically everything. And I mean, yes, the it was very confessional, although that kind of fits in with the singer songwriter
Yeah.
trend of the
Absolutely.
time, that those were some very confessional kind of songs. So yeah, that was another one that I was just absolutely shocked that it wasn't already a single. So
Hmm.
Jealous
Yeah.
Guy for me, no brainer.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And
Okay.
you have another from
Oh, you
John?
want another one?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. And again, this is so so hard, because some of these, I don't know if I would say they were super commercial. I think Bless You had a chance maybe for adult contemporary
Mhm.
audiences, because that, again, it was part of that
Very adult.
soft kind of that,
Hmm.
yeah, that sort of soft rock sound
Right.
that became very popular in the 70s. So that was another one that I thought was a
Kid,
possibility.
you and I are not in sync too much today for some
I know,
strange
this
Yeah.
is
reason. No, no,
unusual.
no, we're not. We're not, because I was going to say, well, I like the song "Bless You" as an album track. It's another one. I don't know. It just seems. What is it about it? I don't want to say slow, because you have stuff like "The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face." Well, that
Yeah.
one's a single, right? But I just can't see that really working as a single, personally. But
Yeah,
Hmm.
I
what do you guys
again,
think?
mainly
Uh,
for a specific kind of audience, adult contemporary. Plus it was just a different sound, a little bit of a different sound for John
Right.
from the time, softer. And again, that soft rock movement in the 70s and into the 80s was big.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Mhm.
again, that's another case of a favorite of mine, but I couldn't see
Hmm.
it as a single.
Mhm.
There's so many from the
I
solo
Yeah.
career
know,
that I could say that
so
about.
hard.
And that's what we're trying to do here is separate your favorites from what you really think would have made it as a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jealous Guy, I'm glad that Jealous Guy has become the classic that it now is,
Mhm.
because it certainly deserves it. And that's another case, just like Living in the Material World, one single from Imagine, that's it.
Yep. Exactly.
I mean, that's
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I agree.
So let's move on. Well, we'll go to Tom now
Yeah,
for John.
as you can see, Jealous Guy is my very first one. Jealous Guy.
hmm,
I think that would have been a nice follow up to Imagine.
Hmm.
The orchestration is beautiful. He's in great singing voice. I think, and the lyrics are there, which I think, again, I think in the criteria as well is appealing to the person that normally wouldn't go out and buy a John Lennon record. And I think that's a good song. I think that would appeal to the casual Lennon fan. Another one I've got that's again, Mind Games, only one single here in the state, and I think in a great follow up for me personally, Out the Blue is, I
mhm.
think, would make
Hmm.
a nice, not necessarily number one, but maybe top 20 for sure. In my opinion, I love the story that he's telling. We all know that a lot of his songs are about Yoko, and I think this was one of the best ones out there, right up there with "Don't Let
Oh,
Me
it's
Down."
nice, nice song.
And
Mhm.
New York City or whatever. But I think this is something that would appeal to the mass audience as well. And I would love to have seen it backed up with "Tight As the B-side. I thought that would make it a nice,
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
a nice single. So
Hmm.
and
good
and
choices.
Ken, how
Yeah.
about you, Ken?
Okay. First of all, before I read mine, I want to answer a couple of responses here
Mhm.
from our viewers.
We're
Yeah,
getting wonderful responses,
yeah,
by the way, and we will get to we're not going to be able to mention them all on air, but we will
yeah.
definitely respond to them after the show. So don't worry if we don't display your comment right away.
Rich Kutwika writes, "Was Tomorrow a single for Wings?" No, it wasn't. There were no singles from Wildlife, but Love
Right.
is Strange was touted as being the
Right.
single, and that was
Hmm.
pulled. And in fact, if you have the Wings Wildlife Deluxe box set, it has the single edit
edit.
version of
Yeah.
Love is Strange. Love is Strange could have worked as a single, and I think Tomorrow could have as well.
Mhm.
Two top
find-
contenders from Wildlife there.
Oh.
Tom Green wrote Meat City back with Tight As. Very nice.
That would have been
I
solid.
love those choices. As far as John is concerned, my number one choice will surprise some of you, but I'm actually surprised nobody's mentioned it. Oh, Yoko.
Doesn't surprise me. I have it on my list.
Okay.
There are a couple votes for it. There are a couple votes
Okay.
for it.
Although I started thinking to myself, but because of the animosity and hatred toward
That's
Yoko,
right.
I'm wondering if they'd have a problem with it, you know. But as a popular commercial tune, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, it's just so damn catchy.
It is.
I mean, you listen to it once and you have it stuck in your head. And
Yeah.
I did read that the record company wanted John to make that the second single, but John refused because he said it went against his tough guy image. I mean, come on.
Really, I didn't know that.
You know, is Imagine a rough song? You know,
He was thinking. He
would have been
really
fine.
said that. I've
Yeah.
never heard that before. Wow.
So
That's weird.
not those exact words, but that idea, you know, the acid tongue Lennon, you know,
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
against that image. But Oh Yoko, I think would have made a hit. And
Excuse me for a minute. Excuse me. Let me just address Marvin G. He said that he reminded us that Meat City was a B-side
right.
already for Mind Games, but then that also made me wonder doing this. If a song was a B-side, could we say, well, that maybe it counts to pick as what we would have liked to be the A-side hit?
Yeah.
I think it should.
Yeah.
I think in those cases, those were mistakes, you know, in my opinion, because I
agree.
think that highly of those songs. In fact, I thought we'd go through a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But getting back to John, I want to mention
Yeah.
a few more. These are honorable mentions. Definitely Out the Blue. Thank you, Tom. That's a great song that I more and more people are discovering it as being one of John's, you know, overlooked songs from his solo career. Beautiful song. Really could have been, I think, you know, recognized as a great ballad in his solo career, even more so if it was a single. And Matthew Smith wrote in What You Got. I put that in there too. It's a great funky track. It's so catchy, very edgy. I love that. You know, that could have been the follow-up to Number 9 Dream. Instead, going with what we were just saying here, Joe, it was the B-side of Number 9 Dream. But it could have been the third single from Walton Bridges. Also, I also put Slippin' and Slidin' in there.
I have that on my list. Leave me some, will you? Yes. There's not many with John. Oh, yes. That's a good choice, Ken. Good choice.
Great energy in that song, and you know, I love most of the rock and roll album. They're great covers there, but Slippin' and Slidin' just kicks butt. You know, everything about it is just so perfect with the horns being what it is, and you know, it's a really short song. You know, it could have worked. I mean, Stand By Me made it to number 20. I don't see why Slippin' and Slidin' wouldn't have made top 40 or
very
top
good,
20.
very good.
Yeah.
Good pick. I agree. You know, I'm going to keep mine. I'm looking at my list, and I have to go to the runners-up, so to speak. You know, because I did have Oyoko as the first pick. So I'll go and Slip It and Slide in a few others. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep along those lines, and I'm going to go with Bebopalula. Which I think was a single in other places. I think I have that as a single. I forget what country it's from. Maybe Japan, possibly. But you know, also around that period, or maybe it was a little late, but we had that kind of 50s revival too around there. Happy Days, 74, 75, American Graffiti, 73. Maybe a song like Bebopalula maybe could have been interesting on the charts. Yes, yay, nay. I don't know. What do you think?
Possibly.
Yeah. I mean, you make a good point about the 50s craze at that time.
Yeah, I was thinking of that.
That's possible.
Now, here's one I'm wondering if anybody would agree with this, except maybe Ken. I'm going to the Mind Games album again. There are a few on there, but it's a song that it's not one of my favorites, and a lot of people say it's kind of cliched and slogany and all this kind of stuff, corny in a way, but it's Only People, which I thought maybe has a commercial sound to it. I think they used that for a commercial recently or something.
They did, but I can't remember what it was
I
for.
I
remember
don't
Two
something
either.
years
that was
ago,
used
and
as
I
a
was
commercial
stunned.
too.
I was stunned.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
And stop.
And I think that even though, yeah, it's got a lot of, kind of outdated slogan, and there's that word again that I don't like to use, but even back then it was kind of like, cliched.
yeah,
Cliched is a good word.
Mhm.
But I
you
think
know,
that's a good. So I can go with a couple more, but we have runners up. We should move on. But Intuition also is a track that I kind of think is a good commercial song. A
yeah.
lot of people I
Mhm.
know kind of get down on that too. I know one guy that used to say, "Oh, that's like John being like a cheap lounge singer or something doing that."
Ah,
Oh, hey,
jeez.
all
No.
right, and all this kind of stuff. I don't agree with it, but and it's also it's an upbeat, positive, optimistic, la di da through the park kind of thing for walk through the park for John, trying to be positive. I think the way I looked at it, and
Mm.
so
No,
without go ahead.
no, I was going to say Intuition's a great choice. I always thought that was a
Yeah.
very commercial song. I don't know
Mhm.
how
And
big a hit it would be, but I think it would definitely be top 40 status.
one
You
Mm.
of
know,
our viewers here had put down I know," and that's also
uh,
not a bad idea
Yeah.
either for
it's a
I
great
think
song.
I think You Are Here too may have been
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that was that was
would have made a
nominated.
nice single.
yeah.
Mhm.
Excuse me.
You know, there's a lot of great songs, like I said here, but it's hard for me to envision some of these songs as being hits.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, they're more
Right,
album
right,
tracks, but really strong album tracks.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
know, and
right,
it's
right.
interesting you brought up Only People because it is like slogan rock, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
like Power to the
Mhm.
People was, you
Hmm.
know, and
Right.
it is catchy and it does work on that level. It
Mhm.
probably could have done something at that time. Again, top 40 status. You
Mhm.
know, I don't think it's lived up to being a song that most people think of as being amongst his best in his solo career. But everything, most of that Mind Games album, I think, is totally brilliant. You know, very underrated. I love all the songs. What I think would make it as a hit, you know, it's like Bring On the Lucy, Free to
Yeah.
Be. That's
Well,
another slogan rock, if you want to
there's
call it that. If you want to
it's a
label it,
good song, but of course
yeah.
there's a line in there, kind of risque line in there that I won't mention.
Okay.
But you'll think
No.
about
Yeah,
people who
this is
know
a
the
family
song.
show, Joe.
You
Uh,
know. Um, but I keep watching the clock, so I'm
Yep.
gonna move a little bit here. Let's
Mhm.
go on to Ringo Starr and start with "Kid Around" again,
Uh,
and see what you
Oh,
would pick. Two songs maybe from Ringo that you thought about.
sounds good. Well, one of them, that this was another. I can't believe this wasn't a single. "Give Me Back the Beat" from
Mm.
Choose Love. I thought that was a lot of fun. I remember him playing that live,
yeah.
and it was really. I mean, it always got a great response from the audience. It was catchy. Ringo, I thought, sounded strong in that, and it was a lot of fun. Again, I'm not saying this would be number one. I'm not saying it's a number one hit, but I think it would have been, a fun, it's just pure Ringo. I think it's
Mm.
a pure Ringo cut,
Uh,
and
I don't disagree with you, but I'm gonna leave it to
mhm.
Ken. I'm
Well,
not taking. I'm not. No, I'm not gonna say this.
I agree with your feelings about the song, but it's from Shoes Love, which came out in 2005.
Right.
And we're just doing 70s and 80s here.
Oh, duh. That's right. I'm sorry.
Hey, that's what
Duh.
when you put the video up. That's what the edit is for, right?
Oopsie. Okay. I forgot. That was, yes, that's right. I love that
Yeah.
song. I will take any
Give me back
excuse
the
to.
beat.
All right.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a great song though. No, okay. Let me go back to my real one. That was just a
Okay,
pretend one.
Uh-huh.
he's just
So
Okay.
testing us to make sure
I'm
we
just
were
testing
alert.
you. You make sure, and
Yeah.
yeah, you're great. So one of them is "Sunshine Life for Me." Now I know this wasn't a super commercial kind of song, but I think it had, it had some country crossover potential.
Yeah,
And it was just so darn catchy.
Yeah.
Plus, you have um George Harrison's vocals prominently featured in there. I mean, you can definitely hear them. Great guitar, and I think that it should have been not the lead single. I mean, I think they you know made the right call with with what the other songs they chose. There were so many stellar. I mean, this is a great pop album. Period.
Sure.
So hard to say, but I think I would say that. Yeah, I think that could have done some. It was a nice pop song, nice
I
country.
agree with that one. I like that one.
Yeah,
I like that
I mean,
choice. It's
exactly.
good.
Yeah, well, thank you. All right, we agree on something. I mean, oh man, that's awesome. So, anyway, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just laughing. That's all.
No.
No, it's good. We're all good.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let me come back to me for Ringo because I just realized I looked at the other ones I picked for him and they're all the wrong era. So go
All right,
ahead.
think for a while. Okay, hey, this is live, folks. Okay,
Exactly.
Tom.
So go
How about
up.
you,
All
Santa
right.
Claus?
Okay,
What do you
thank you
say?
very much.
Grizzly Adams, what do you got?
Yeah, well, we all know how big Elton John was here in the 70s, and the song was a single in the UK. Didn't chart there, I don't think, but I think he would have done a lot better here because of the fact that Elton John was such a super mega star here in the States. Snookeroo. I just think it's his style. I mean, it's the playful Ringo that we know from like the No No song and songs like that. And I think on the potential of that, great instrumentation. It's just a very fun, a happy record, and I think that could have connected with people. Going to the Bad Boy album, I think they chose a lot of wrong singles for that, and if I had my way, I would have chose Hard Times as a single.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just because
That's a
of the
good
fact
song,
that
good choice.
it's again, it's upbeat, it's horns, it's fun lyrics again from Ringo, from which we can come to expect from a Ringo song. I mean, obviously, he did have he had 3 number ones, but I don't think this would have been number one, but I think he could have continued his streak of top 40 hits that he had.
Yeah, and Tom, that song "Hard Times," for what it's worth, on the Ringo Starr's TV special, the Agner Rat special, they highlighted that. I remember in one of the segments.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So those are my two, and I think both of those would have done well.
Okay, very good. And Snookeroo also is my number one pick, but that's another one where we could flip it because I believe it was a B-side to maybe No No song. Maybe.
Yeah,
it was a B-side to something.
I remember looking at the Billboard charts and it was listed like it was a double-sided hit, but really the No No song got all the all the airplay.
Right.
Snookeroo got some airplay on rock radio.
Yeah,
but as a standalone, Snookeroo could work. Yeah.
I mean, there was another B-side too that I thought was really strong, but I don't know if any of you guys would have it too, But so I'll wait until to see if any of you guys.
Okay, Ken, go ahead. Go ahead, Ken. Say it. Take my number one choice.
My number one choice is a song I loved from the moment I heard it, and because Ringo was he lost his momentum after Goodnight Vienna, and I still don't fully understand why. But You Don't Know Me at All, I think, was really a very strong song from Ringo's Rotogravure. And I love The Dose of Rock and Roll. I thought that was a great choice for the first single. Hey Baby, I don't know if that should have been the second single. I probably would have made You Don't Know Me at All. It's just a really nice melody, very catchy. If it had gotten airplay like the songs from Ringo and Goodnight Vienna were, I think that song could have been a hit, at least top 40. You're going to say something?
To be honest, I don't know. I mean, again, only in my opinion. While I enjoy You Don't Know Me at All. We all have our own feelings on these things. Nobody. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem to me to be a potential single. But Ken was the program director. He proved me wrong, maybe, when he was doing.
I was the program director on my Beatles.
Yeah. Not for that.
I have another one.
Okay, go ahead.
My second choice will be an odd one to some people, but I always loved Simple Love Song from Ringo the Fourth. I thought it's a very simple song and very catchy. Kind of
Simple,
starts
simple.
off with strings kind of like Philadelphia Freedom from Elton John, I felt. I thought that song had potential. But then
Yeah.
again, Drowning in the Sea of Love, which was the first single from, oh no, Wings was the first single from
Wings
that
was
album.
first, and then
And that didn't do well. And Drowning in
no.
the Sea of Love didn't do well. So, you know, if you've got two singles that didn't chart well at all, the chance
Right.
for a third single, you know, there would have been no chance for it to be a hit. But I
Well,
still
third
Right.
think,
time's a charm.
well,
Sometimes
maybe a Simple Love Song should have been the first or
should have been
second
the
single.
one.
And I also want to say, as an honorable mention, 6 o'clock from the Ringo
Ah, that's the
album.
one.
Yep,
I thought you were going to leave that for me. That's the one I thought you were going to take from the
Okay.
beginning.
There have been a number of votes for that.
So, yeah, 6 o'clock. Yeah, that was the first one I thought of. But however, I was doing it in my mind. I was going, album by album. I mean, I did Sentimental Journey, Bukus of Blues, and so on.
Uh-huh.
But 6 o'clock, I think that's a good single choice. The thing is, I thought maybe it's a little too long, though. Could be a little trimmed somehow, maybe, if they were going to put it
No.
as a single.
The regular version from the Ringo album was just the right length. But then they had the
So the-
extended version, which I
The
think was
long,
too long. But
extended version. That's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, maybe.
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. So, all right. Well, so 6 o'clock I had, but I also had, funny, I had a couple of other songs from the Bad Boy album by Ringo. I'm not sure how I feel about them. I was thinking of Tonight.
hmm
That really is an album track when you think of it, But I was wondering, I was thinking about that today. Would that make it as if it was a radio song? Here's the new song by Ringo, and they played Tonight. I don't know.
Well,
I leave that up to you.
don't think about today. Think about
Well,
1978.
that's what I meant. Did I say
yeah.
today? I meant I meant at the time.
Uh-huh.
If they had said that, would it have been? This is Ringo's new song. Would it have done anything? I also like
Yeah.
"Heart on My Sleeve," which is
That
both
was a single.
slower songs. Oh, that was. See,
That
I knew
was
I
a
was going to
single.
do that at some point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, "Heart on My Sleeve." Well, there you go. I told you it was a good single. It would make a good single. It was.
In fact, let me tell you something. When Bad Boy came out and Lipstick Traces was the first single, and it didn't do that well at all, I wrote to Portrait Records and I said, I really think you should make Heart on My Sleeve the second single. And they did. And it's stiff.
Oh, I don't think.
But
Did you get-
radio
You didn't get a
radio
credit?
was not playing him at that time,
Right.
period.
Yeah.
Top 40.
Yeah.
That's something that I brought up here before. I wish we'd do a show on it. Why you think suddenly, right after Goodnight Vienna, everything started to tank for Ringo?
Yeah.
Was it really because the music wasn't as good?
Just
What
change
happened
format.
there? I mean,
Yeah.
he did so well from 1971 through 75, from It Don't Come Easy through the No No Song. Even Goodnight Vienna made the top 40, and then a Dose of Rock and Roll made the top 40, and then all of a sudden, everything stiffed.
Yeah.
Not my brain.
Even though I enjoy some of those songs off Rotogravure, however you say it, I can that one not so much, but Ringo the Fourth, which I also enjoy. We did a show on that. I enjoy some stuff off that, but that I could see maybe losing a little, as compared to Ringo, Goodnight Vienna, and even Rotogravure.
Right.
I can see
Also-
that a little step down.
Yeah. One other thing, I know I mentioned 6 o'clock, and Kit, you mentioned Sunshine Life for Me. Remember, that was at a time when we didn't have more than 3 singles. That was a lot from one
Right.
album. So you're asking for 4 singles, or are you asking for one of those singles to be eliminated of those first 3? And
Right.
the 3 singles from Ringo and from Band on the Run did so well, would you have substituted those songs? I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
No. But you know
That's
what? Who's to say that you stop at 3 singles? I mean, if the songs are continuously charting high, why stop? I mean, maybe that gives the artist a little bit more time to, before he needs to put his next album out or whatever. But if you feel like that the album is so strong, why stop? I mean, obviously, I'll talk about that soon once we get to Paul. But once you got into the '80s, I mean, people were putting 5 to 6,
Yeah,
people were putting
for sure.
5 to 6 singles out per album.
Michael Jackson. Michael
Yep.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Case in
Perfect
point.
example.
I mean,
That's
Right.
Hysteria. You know, I mean, a lot of these albums had
How many
tons of
singles were out from that Cyndi Lauper album that I like? She's So Unusual.
Unusual.
There
Yeah,
were
there
a
were
lot
at
of
least
four.
four.
singles.
something
Yeah,
like
I think
that.
it was four. Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
those days, 3 was a lot
Right.
in 1973.
Well, that's
So
different too because bands were putting albums out every year as opposed to every 2 to 3 years once we got to the 80s.
so you're thinking logically, Tom. I'm just telling you,
You're not allowed
that's
to
how
do
it
that on
was
this show.
back then.
Yep.
All right.
Does
All
it make
right.
sense?
Kid, did you happen to come up with another Ringo song?
I certainly
I know
did.
we're getting to an hour.
Yes, we got to get to. Yeah, I know. We got to get to Paul. So yes, my second choice is, and I can't believe this is another one that I can't believe wasn't a single, which is "I'm the Greatest" of
Well,
Ringo. You've got. I mean, that
Oh,
is
sure, yeah.
such a fun song. Of course, John wrote it perfectly for Ringo's personality. Features a sense of humor. It's catchy. I mean, there are so many songs from Ringo when you come to think of it that could have been singles.
Yeah.
I mean, you could practically have released almost anything, from it because it was such a solid piece of
It even
pop
has the
rock.
Billy Shears line at the end, which
So
might
exactly. So you've got
nostalgic,
the Beatles.
nostalgic
You've got
for
the
the Beatles.
nostalgic factor. You've got the Beatles connection. Great vocal performance from Ringo, and it's catchy as hell. It really
Good
is.
choice.
That's so
Good
that's
choice.
that would definitely be yeah. So all right. So should we move on to?
I think it's about to, unless we
John?
should end the show because
No.
we have a lot more to go with Uncle Paul. So
Yeah, it's Uncle Paul.
we're gonna start. We're gonna start with Kit. We've been doing it that way. That's why
Sure.
Same way. Okay, let's go, Kit.
Well,
you're on.
I think first of all, and I admit I'm a little prejudiced about this, a little biased toward it. I wish Man had been released as a single. It would have been a nice follow up to Say. Of course, at the time, Michael Jackson was hot, hot, hot. I mean, so, and it actually was supposed to be released as a single.
Right.
That's right.
At one point, and wasn't for label disputes, I believe it was. And so I really, I know not everybody loves the song, but I think it had, a lot of commercial potential, and it's also catchy. Just their voices blended so well together. But again, it would have. I think if they had released that rather than perhaps as a follow up rather than So Bad, which I love So Bad, by the way. But if he was just interested in selling more copies of Pipes of Peace, probably it would have been a better idea to release The Man, or maybe after So Bad, or something like that. So as I said, I'm a little biased, but but The Man for obvious reasons. But I think the Man would have been a stellar single. So many people below have been recommending ones that I had on my list too.
Me too.
Yep. So I mean, I could just pick from ones, but I think I thought Ballroom Dancing would have been a good single. It's a lot of
my number one.
Sorry.
This is great,
Sorry.
isn't it? No, that's a great choice, I must say.
And again, that's just another case of I can't believe that wasn't a single. It was just a pure Paul, track. It was fun. It was, it was danceable, was catchy. Of course, then it did get more exposure, and give my regards to Broad Street, but I don't know, why that wasn't picked. I mean, even though Take It Away, I completely agree that was a great lead single. Yeah, and Ebony and Ivory, of course, before that. But I think Ballroom Dancing would have been, a great follow up for those two.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Tom?
Well, I did something different with Ballroom Dancing. I did Ballroom Dancing as a double A side with Wanderlust. Both of those songs, to me, I think are extraordinary off of Tug of War. Excuse me. And I think either one would have done fine but themselves, but I think they're both very strong songs that a double A side would have been pretty cool if he would have done that with those two songs. we talked before about tomorrow, so maybe I won't mention that. But from Venus to Mars, there's what was the second single after
Letting Go.
yeah, Letting Go. Thank you. I think Letting Go is a good song, but for me personally, I think Call Me Back is a more commercial song, and I think it would have been a better follow-up to Listen to What the Man Said.
That was a
That's
runner-up
my
for
turn.
me. I completely agree.
I just think I think the horns on that are really stellar. The vocals are great, and I think it's just the all around as they say, pure McCartney song. I'm not saying Letting Go is a bad song, but I just think Call Me Back is just a little bit more commercial in my opinion compared to Letting Go. So those are my two picks.
I wonder if Kent's with me on it. I don't know. I like Letting Go as I like the song a lot, and I like that as a single. And I also enjoy the hell out of Call Me Back Again as an album track.
Right.
For me personally, I don't see it working as a single, but
Fair enough.
Who's right and who's wrong?
I'm with you, Joe. And Letting Go is a tremendous song. And the problem with Letting Go is I always loved the version from Venus and Mars until I heard the version from Wings Over America. I think it's such a much better version when it's done live. And when he does it live now, it sounds fantastic with the horns and everything. To me, Letting Go is the Let Me Roll It of Venus and Mars. That's how I look at it. It really has a great edge to it. The brass is wonderful. I definitely didn't have a problem with that being a single. Although the problem with Venus and Mars for me is that Venus and Mars Rock Show, I think, should have been the second single and the full version, if that was at all possible. The single edit was horrible. And because Letting Go didn't do as well as a single, then I think that Venus and Mars Rock Show didn't perform as well as it should have. Venus and Mars Rock Show is, I don't know why you don't hear that more on the radio today.
I agree.
It's a great album track, title track, just like Band on the Run to me.
Right.
And no, but Call Me Back Again I see as an album track and a real strong one. It's like his Oh Darling of that time. You know? Yeah.
Cool. All right.
So my choices.
Yeah.
I think that
I thought you were on. You're on.
Just two.
I think Kit was reading my list here because I had to say, and it's kind of like I don't even have to think about this. Ballroom dancing. What happened?
Yeah.
It just screamed single. And with Tug of War, don't ever knock success. I've always believed that. Ebony and Ivory was the #1 single for 7 weeks. Take It Away hit number 10. You can't go wrong with those songs. But the title track to Tug of War over Ballroom Dancing, does that make any sense at all? Tug of War is a great song, wonderful song, great title track, but it's not a single.
No.
Ballroom Dancing had hit record all over it. So catchy. His vocals are fantastic. The whole production, the horn section, George Martin's work was tremendous. Everything about Ballroom Dancing was perfect. And what really kills me about this, a year or two later, the Kinks came out with Come Dancing. Very similar as far as the topic matter about looking back at your youth and going to the dance. And it's very similar, those two songs. So Ballroom Dancing is the biggest missed opportunity in Paul's solo career. It really should have been a single. No question about that, as far as I'm concerned. And I also have to agree with you, Kid, about The Man. I mean, there's a lot of other songs in Paul's solo career that I love more than that.
Me too.
The collaboration and the way they sounded together, and like you said, Michael Jackson was hot, hot, hot. It would have at least went top 10.
Exactly.
Especially off the heels of a #1 song with Say, Say, Say. I never would have picked So Bad as a second single. I'm sorry. I love the song.
I love it too.
I love the fact Ringo's in it. It's a nice video, but The Man should have been the second single. And in fact, I wouldn't have even made So Bad a single. Probably Through Our Love is a better love song than So Bad. So,
I like So Bad quite a bit.
Me too.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
As a
Joe.
single.
Okay.
I don't like the man at all. But even like we said at the beginning, though, it's not a matter of what you necessarily
Right.
like. It
Right.
might be something you can't stand, but it would make a great single. But
Right.
I'm not sure for me that other than the fact that it's the connection between Michael Jackson and Paul, that it would be a great catchy single or
Yeah,
anything either.
and you guys don't think overexposure would have came into play with if the man was released? I mean, that would have been like the third, duet, and then Tug of War is a #1 album. Thriller's a #1 album. I mean, those guys were all over the place during that time, and I just feel like maybe. I'm not saying that if it was a single, I probably would have got it.
Yeah.
But I do think there's such a thing as overexposure and putting too much out at so close together.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
could be.
you've got cases of duets from people like Barbara Streisand with Barry Gibb, 3 hit singles from the same album.
And that one same album,
Actually,
yeah.
2 of them were duets. But
Right.
yeah, that can happen. I mean, if it was a couple of albums in a row of all duets, it would be
Right.
getting out of hand. I don't think it was too much at the time.
Mm.
I really don't.
Yeah,
can
I
I-
mean, and again, Michael was so huge the time that I think people would have scooped up that single. Absolutely.
Probably. Yeah, I
Mhm.
agree.
Can I mention a few more, like honorable mentions?
Sure, as long as you don't take any of mine.
Okay, why don't you do yours first? You do yours
Oh,
first.
that's fair.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm just going to get this out of the way. I would have picked maybe I'm Amazed first and foremost, this 1970 version, but that's not one of my picks because we're not really saying it, but I got it in anyway.
Yeah.
Because I figure, it was issued in '76, the live version, as a single and everything. But in 1970, you didn't know it was, that was the future then, So I could have saw them in '70 putting it out. That still boggles my mind that wasn't a single in 1970.
Mhm.
But I'm also partial to Every Night, and I'm wondering if that had single potential.
If
That was a
if,
runner-up for me too. Yeah.
if maybe Amaze was released as a single, I think that would have been a great follow-up single. I don't think it would have made a good first single.
Right. Very good.
I agree with that.
Oh, okay. I have a bunch of them. I'm going to go with Eat at Home, which I think is a powerful track from Ram. Zippy and, catchy commercial kind of sound. And I got more, but I'm going to leave the rest for Ken because I know he's got a lot that he's probably aching to say.
Just a few others. Others. I always felt that Cafe on the Left Bank should have been a single.
Love
Oh,
that
Tom
song.
Brennan
Loved
agrees
it.
with you.
Oh, look at that.
Oh,
What
yeah, that's Tom
timing.
Brennan. Tom Brennan.
What
Yeah,
timing.
yeah.
Timing.
Tom, you and I are just.
And that's
we're thinking alike.
oftentimes
Yeah.
almost my #1 song that I'd like to see him do live, believe it or not, if he's going to
Yeah.
pick something. I always come up with that song. Although Uncle Albert's my #1 if they could ever somehow figure it out how to do
Yeah.
it.
But when London Town came out and you had With a Little Luck, #1 song there, then he follows it with I've Had Enough. And I know a lot of people like I've Had Enough. I love I've Had Enough. But I think Cafe on the Left Bank was more melodic. I think it was catchier, had a bit of an edge to it. I think that would have worked better as a second single than I've Had Enough. And then London Town, I like the song a lot. Again, I don't think I would have made that a single the same way I wouldn't have made Tug of War a single.
No.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
so maybe With Little Luck, Cafe on the Left Bank, I've Had Enough.
Yeah.
Those should have
You
been the
guys-
singles.
What do you guys think of the song "Devil's Radio" as the fourth potential?
I had that on my
Yeah.
list. Yeah, I think that's a great choice for a commercial, and it's about the radio. Though, it's another
Right,
thing.
exactly.
It's
Right.
just occurring to me as we're
Yeah.
talking about. But I have that on my list just because it's so damn catchy and intense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also put down 1985. But then again, you already have
That
3
was-
singles from Band on the Run.
Mhm.
So
Right.
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's one of his best post-Beatles songs, period, 1985. The whole sound of it, the piano's pumping and everything. And I think that could have been a hit. The Band on the Run could have had
could
more than
just
3 hits.
Throw out whatever
Sure.
real quick, whatever we can think of. Faster, George Harrison.
Well,
Was
one
that a single?
That was a
I know there was a
single in the
video.
UK. In
Right.
the
In the
UK.
UK.
Oh, it was in the UK. Okay, like I know
Yeah.
there was. I knew there was a video to that, but
Right. There
Mm.
is.
Yep. That's what makes it confusing when you've got videos for songs and you think that it has to be a single here.
Yep,
Right.
and it
It
isn't.
may
Yeah,
not have been.
yeah, I
So,
didn't think it was in the US. And
Mhm.
Heart of the Country?
Yes.
no. Well, I mean, it wasn't a single. It wasn't a single, but
No.
yeah,
I
I
agree.
think.
I love that.
I don't
I
know.
think.
You know, a
I
short
think an
acoustic
edit.
tune like that.
Yeah. An edited version of some people maybe know. I think 6 minutes is way too long. I think if they brought it down to maybe a 3:45, I thought maybe could see a little potential there. But
Fish on the Sand by Mark
Excellent.
B. Has Fish on the Sand.
Excellent.
Good choice.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
tomorrow. But the one that always comes to mind for me for Paul is Tomorrow. I think that's the one
Yeah.
that's I always consider a lost opportunity for a single.
That's
Yeah.
one that I think could be. Am I right or wrong? Could be trimmed a little bit. The end of that. No, for a single. I mean,
It's not
I don't
pretty
think it's
short.
that
I
long.
mean, yeah, I mean it's already under 4 minutes.
well, I mean,
Part of-
not so much the length, except the repetition of it. I don't know. Well,
It's like the
So's
false
Dynamite.
ending. You have a
Right.
false ending there, and then the band comes back.
Right.
But part of the appeal is that and Paul's rough, edgy vocals in the song.
Right.
yeah. Oh, I know
Well,
that. I just wonder if
yeah.
it would work on as a radio top. Top 10, top 40.
I think it would make the top 40, probably top 20.
Yeah.
You know, but I always loved Love Is Strange. And I always thought that could work as a single. Great cover of that song.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only other song from Paul that I would definitely consider, we're talking duets before, how about What's That You're Doing?
Oh, I was so on the
right.
fence about that. I love that song.
Yeah.
I love it. But I was like, would it have commercial potential? I couldn't decide. But I agree. I love that song.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, me too.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I would have made Tug of War, Ebony and Ivory, either Ballroom Dancing, Take It Away, interchangeable, and then What's That You're Doing?
Yep.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's me. And I love Wanderlust, don't get me wrong, Tom.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
just
yes.
don't see that as a hit. But we all have different opinions.
Exactly.
Yep.
Who knows? All right. Is that it? Anybody have any last choices?
One more.
Go ahead.
One more.
One
The
more.
one
Go
from
ahead.
George that I think we all overlooked here, which got a ton of airplay when it came out, is Awaiting
Love
on
comes
You
to
All.
everyone.
No. That was a single.
That was on my list. That was
Oh,
on my list.
jeez.
Love Comes to Everyone was a single.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Awaiting on You All.
I-
So
Waiting on
catchy.
you all.
You know, I would have made that a third single.
I
from-
consider that too, but I don't think you could, do two songs from one album that are, preachy, if you will,
Oh.
I don't know.
because as great as that song is, I just think that maybe that might have been, asking the listener too much, So I don't know.
Yeah.
Apple Scruffs.
Yep,
No.
we had a vote for that.
Yeah.
Well,
That
yes.
was the B-side.
Yeah.
In
Mhm.
fact, before we close here, we talked about songs that were B-sides. There were album tracks that made it as B-sides to singles, and yet we feel could have been hits, A-sides.
Yeah.
How about Too Many People being the B-side of Uncle Albert Admiral Halsey?
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
Does
Or
that
it
make
could've
any
been-
sense at all?
Yeah.
And then, how about Beware My Love being the B-side of Let 'Em In? Come
Yeah.
on. I mean, Beware My Love
Exactly.
could have been a hit.
Yeah. Early
That-
1970, I thought could have been a hit.
But I
Of
do
course,
like
that
the way
wasn't from an album, though.
I think I agree. I think "Beware My Love" could have been a hit if done right. But I also like the contrast in that single. You got "Let 'Em In" is so mellow and Paul. Then you turn it around and you get this real rocker. So
Right.
I like that.
Mhm.
Switch.
Cool.
Well, let's see, folks. I think that kicks it in the head for this particular edition. Why don't we why don't we go around and talk about our contact information and stuff like that, and where people can write to us or what we do and so on. All right, so let's. I'm doing this the order I see everybody. So let's start with Kit.
All right. Well, before I do that, Mark P. Just nominated Magneto and Titanium Man, my favorite, my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sarcasm.
Oh man,
For some
your favorite
reason, you
track?
have a problem with that song. I don't understand.
Yeah. What is it about it?
this is an ongoing, running joke. Okay. Well, as always, you can find me at kiddotool.com and on Twitter at kiddotool. This weekend, if you're listening, the week of February 3rd, on February 8th, I am going to be at the Museum of Broadcast Communications down in downtown Chicago. They're having a Beatles bash this weekend. It'll be a lot of fun. They're going to have, it's sort of to celebrate the anniversary of on February 9th of the Ed Sullivan appearance. So I'm going to be on a panel with Robert Rodriguez and Wally Podrazik, two people we all know and love. And we are going to be doing a panel on the Beatles on TV. So it should
Cool.
be interesting.
It's
So
interesting,
that it really will be fun. So that is Saturday, February 8th. I believe our panel is at 2:00 Central Time. I don't know. People have asked me if it's going to be taped. I don't know. But if it is, I will definitely find out. I hope it will be. There's American English, which is a big tribute, Beatles tribute band out here.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing. They're going to be showing films. It's just going to be a big party. So I'll post information on it. And also the very next day on February 9th, I am going to be on a program called Gabby Road. and
Good title.
it's a really cute title, where I will be talking about the Beatles' first appearance on Ed Sullivan. I believe I will be on the air on there like at about 11:15 Central Time, 12:15 Eastern. You can listen on WCGO 1590 AM or 95.9 FM. You can also listen online, their Facebook live stream, or tune in. Again, I will send all the information. I'll post all the information on my page. So it's going to be a busy weekend.
Okay. Tom.
Well, we had a busy 2 weeks myself. First of all, for some unknown reason, don't know why, Facebook has never gotten back to me. But our original Two Legs Facebook page got unpublished. Don't know why.
That's
what happened. Yeah, so I put up a new page. So everybody that did like the page, if you don't mind going back to the Two Leg Facebook page, it's brand new. And if you don't mind heading over there and liking it, and that's where you'll find a lot of the info about myself and the Two Leg Show and my co-host Andy Nichols. I was guest hosted on When They Was Fab 2 weeks ago with our friend Ed Chen. We did the mini drug bus of Paul and Linda McCartney, and that was a lot of fun. Had a good time with that. Last weekend I did a show, a live chat with a new friend that me and Mr. Mayo knows. His name is Adam. He goes by Record Crate on YouTube, and we did the last 7 LPs and CDs we listened to. We showed, we had a nice discussion about all of those. So if you want to head over to YouTube and check out Record Crate and subscribe to him, he's got a lot of fun videos there. The last Two Leg Show we just published last week, and that was with Ken Michaels' co-host Alan Kulisek. It was part 2 of our look at Paul's classical work, and we talked about the Standing Stone album. And Alan also gave us an update on the McCartney Legacy book that he's working on with Adrian Sinclair. So look for that later this year, maybe October. Next up, we're going to have Robert Rodriguez on the show, as Kit just mentioned, and she also agreed to come back on Two Legs later this month for a McCartney Jackson show. So I look forward to that.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, you can email twolegs at twolegspodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter, Instagram at Two Legs Podcast, and also check us out on YouTube at Two Legs Podcast as well. So there you go. So busy over there.
Phew, that's a lot. I don't know if
I know. Sorry about that.
I'm gonna throw mine in there. Just subscribe to me, Mr. Mayo, on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got to say. No, hey, and I'm available. Anybody want me on any of your podcasts? Just ask. We'll come up with the topic. Okay. So there's nothing really I have else to say. Nothing new on there. Just the usual. Ken, how about you? Anything
Boy,
new?
you guys are so busy. Tom, 2 legs is sizzling
Thank you.
right now.
Yeah.
Let's see. This coming Wednesday night, the live broadcast of my show, Every Little Thing, will have as my theme, guess what? Songs that should have been singles. I timed it perfectly to coincide with this show.
There you go.
Only it's a mixture of Beatles and solo. So that's this Wednesday night on WNHU in West Haven, Connecticut. You can stream it at WNHU.org, and that's at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. All right? And that's just a 1-hour show. Also, as I said earlier, I just did an interview with Kifo Nilsson. Harry Nilsson had 7 kids. He was very prolific. Kifo is the next to youngest of his kids, and we talked about his life with his dad. Unfortunately, he was only 8 when his dad passed away. But he talks about his music and the new album Lost and Found, which he plays bass on. And he also talks about the new, as I said, the 50th anniversary edition of The Point on Blu-ray, which he was involved with, and his own musical career. That's on my website at kenmichaelsradio.com on interviews page 4. By the way, a couple of years ago, I interviewed Zach Nilsson. That's Harry's first son. Yes. So on the same page, you've got Kifo, you got Zach. You got 2 Nilssons for the price of 1 right there on that one page. So if you're a Harry Nilsson fan, you can listen to both of his sons there on my page. Also, things we said today, there'll be a new show out Thursday or Friday with Darren DeVivo and Alan Kozin. And that show, just like this show, you can find on Podbean, on YouTube, on iTunes. And, of course, on my website, every single week, I have Beatles trivia. There'll be one posted right after the show tonight on the Beatles trivia and games page. You can win one of 9 prizes, including Kit's wonderful book, Songs We Were Singing. And so many other great prizes. Ken Womack's book, Solid State, Peter Asher's new book, a lot of great things, all there on the website. KenMichaelsRadio.com. I think that covers everything. Oh, if you want to email me, directly, it's every little thing.
I mean, I'm tired.
Every little thing at att.net.
All right. And before we go, we have to also mention you can get a hold of us first you can follow us at Talk More Talk 1 on Twitter. Obviously, you know about our Facebook page, and you can also email us at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. We want to hear your stories and your ideas for stories. In fact, here's one idea for a show that Mark P. already sent. What about songs that were singles but shouldn't have been? So there you go. There could be, So, I mean, there are, we want to hear your ideas. So yes.
Well, okay, that sounds good. And Kit, this is going to be quite a challenge for you to upload.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last one was pretty tough, but nope, I can handle it.
Okay, and now how do you get out of here? Now you say for Kit O'Toole, Tom Hagnotti, Ken Michaels. This is me, Mr. Mayo, Joe Mayo saying peace and love, everyone. That's the only way.
Peace and love.